For sinister night drives, spine-chilling tales of the cursed and unexplainable revealed. Sarah Johnson had once thought of Maple Grove as a soft cocoon, a peaceful suburb where her children could run free and laughter filled the air. By day, she played the role of the devoted mother, changing diapers, chasing toddlers, and juggling shifts at the local hospital. But by night, her escape came alive. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she would slide into her car and drift through the familiar streets. That soothing routine soon turned sinister. The flickering streetlights cast long shadows along Sunset Avenue, a stretch where her heart thumped in a comforting rhythm. Until one evening, something shifted. A cold prickle coursed down her spine as shadows flitted by, distant figures darting just out of sight. Was it her imagination? In the dim light, her rational mind battled her growing dread. But then the whispers began. They seeped through her car windows like a chilling breeze, scraping at her sanity. "They're coming for you, watch the darkness." Panic rippled through her thoughts like static electricity. Just as she tried to shake the ominous feeling off, her phone buzzed. It was Mark, her husband, whispers reaching him, too, tales from a neighbor about the watcher. Sarah felt a shudder deep in her core. Was she truly losing her grip? As fear took root, she tried to shake it away. But the dread was persistent, hovering like a storm cloud, ready to break. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every night, the stalkerish shadow, the faded blue truck, became her constant companion. It drifted behind her, too close for comfort. Coincidence? Maybe. But there were no more comforting explanations in the wake of those whispers. The air felt tight, as though reality itself conspired with her fears. She tried to speak to the police, seeking validation, but the dismissive smirk from the officer sent her world spiraling into uncertainty. No one believed her. In this once quiet neighborhood, she felt exiled from trust. Sarah's fingers gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. Then she saw it again in the rearview mirror, the truck, closer this time, the air thick with foreboding. The driver was a silhouette, motionless, staring intently. The fear clawed at her throat, and another whisper slithered through her window. "They've come for you too, Sarah." Chills racked her body, as she realized it wasn't just her imagination. Maple Grove had shadows darker than she'd ever known. Her heart beat like a drum, the terror almost deafening. Whatever lurking threat she had stumbled upon, it was hunting her. And in this suburban facade covered in smiles and polite nods, chaos hunted in the dark, expanding its reach. She gasped, racing forward, knowing she was on the precipice of something perilous, a nightmare that would not end without a fight. Would she protect her family, or had the darkness finally come to claim them all? The engine roared as Sarah pressed the accelerator, her heart racing faster than her car. The blue truck was relentless, following her, a ghost in the rearview mirror. A surge of adrenaline pushed her to drive faster, but it didn't help. It just intensified the feeling of being hunted. Every shadow that flickered past felt alive, every corner she turned seemed to hide an even deeper darkness. "Get away!" She shouted into the empty car, but her voice trembled as despair crept in. Where was she supposed to go? The streets were familiar, yet they had morphed into a labyrinth of terror. She had never imagined that Maple Grove could feel so oppressive, like a weight pushing down on her chest. She gripped the wheel tighter, her knuckles stark white against the glare of the streetlights. The whispering jolted her back. "They see you, Sarah." The voice, cold and echoing, sent a wave of nausea through her. She cracked a window, trying to dispel the chilling words, but there was no escaping it. No escape from the truth. Someone was watching. She weathered the winding roads, dense with trees and wrapped in night's embrace. Her mind raced in tandem with the speed of the car, each thought slipping into panic. What if Mark was right? What if this watcher was linked to the stories she had dismissed as village folklore? The legend spoke of shadows that feasted on fear, of families disappearing from sight, as if the earth swallowed them whole. Her phone buzzed again, startling her. It felt like bait from the darkness. With trembling fingers, she glanced at the screen. A final message from Mark flashed. "Come home, Sarah. You're not safe." The words echoed in her mind, igniting a primal fear. She needed to get back to him and the kids. But how could she lead this threat to their doorstep? The truck seemed closer now, each passing moment building urgency within her. In the rearview mirror, the driver's silhouette shifted, a dark hood concealing a face. Sarah's breath hitched. She could not see the eyes, but she felt them boring into her, an icy grasp tightening around her throat. "No turning back," she murmured, ignoring the cold sweat that dripped down her back. Then sudden chaos. A sharp turn ahead. She veered off the main road, tires screeching. In her panic, she took a wrong turn onto an unlit path, the road narrowing and enveloped by thick woods. The blue truck followed, its engine growling like a beast. Trees loomed overhead, clawing at her sides. She could hear the whispers more clearly now, circling her, beckoning. Turn back, they infiltrated her thoughts, eroding her resolve. But she pressed on, desperate need driving her, trying to quell the rising tide of fear. As she rounded a bend, something suddenly blocked her path. A fallen tree, large and solid, loomed like a gaping mouth. Sarah slammed her brakes, the car skidding to a jolting stop. Panic surged within her as she glanced back. The blue truck stopped as well, engine sputtering at the delay. "Get out!" the whispers came again, more insistent, almost pleading. Fear twisted her stomach into knots. The driver of the truck remained still, a statue of menace. She wanted to run, to escape on foot and find help, but her heart pounded like a prisoner against her ribs, her instinct screaming to stay inside the car. Then the driver moved. With a deliberate, slow grace, he stepped out of the truck, shadow dripping into the moonlight. Sarah's breath froze in her throat as he began to walk towards her, his silhouette tall and monstrous. She had a choice, to flee into the dark woods or confront the terror lurking at her door. The road behind her was quickly fading. The trees closed in on her, whispering secrets she could barely comprehend. Time hung heavy as she grappled with her decision. Just as she reached for the handle, the driver's voice broke the silence, a low rumble that echoed in the night. "You've come to us, Sarah." Her heart raced. What did that mean? What were they after? And who was us? The truth was creeping closer, and there would be no way out if she made the wrong move. As he stepped into the light, she braced herself for the revelation of his face, the moment that might change everything. The figure loomed, shrouded in darkness, every step felt like a countdown. Sarah's mind whirled, caught between the urge to scream and the instinct to stay silent, to remain hidden in her metal cocoon. The whispers picked up around her. "You're not alone, you've always belonged." It was as if shadows were crawling beneath her skin, inducing doubt and fear. "Who are you?" she managed to croak, her voice small and shaky, barely rising above the rustle of leaves. He stopped just a few feet away. The light from her headlights flickered over his face, momentarily illuminating a bony structure, sinewy cheeks, and lips that curled into a grin devoid of warmth. "We are the Watchers, the keepers of secrets," he replied, his voice low and gravelly like stones scraping against one another. "We need you, Sarah. You've been chosen." The panic surged anew. Chosen for what? She felt the breath catch painfully in her throat. "I don't want anything to do with you." "Enough." The word burst from him like a clap of thunder. The air stilled, and the night seemed to lean in closer. "You don't have a say in this. It's too late." A shiver crawled down her spine. Too late? The reality of the words hit her harder than the chill of night. How could it be too late? Her fight or flight instinct screamed at her, and she tore her gaze away from his hollow eyes. The fallen tree behind her looked like a fortress. She was trapped. The blue truck, with its engine quiet now, waited behind like a beast of burden, watching, just as its driver did. "Mark," she whispered, praying he was safe. Thoughts of her children rushed back, memories flickering like an old film reel. What would they do without her? "Don't worry about them." The figure sneered, as if reading her thoughts. "You're in this now, bonding with us, your family's future no." She gasped, her heart hammering violently. "Leave them out of this." But the watcher merely chuckled, a sound so cold it could have frozen the air around her. "They cannot be left out. You see, this union you dread, it isn't just for you. It's for your children, too. Their fate relies on the choices we make." Dark images swept through her mind like a storm. What choices? What dreadful future awaited them? Anything was preferable to the blank slate of despair looming ahead of her. As the shadows twisted deeper around them, the trees began to creak ominously, limbs swaying, giving form to the panic. "Get back in the car," she told herself, but her body refused to cooperate. The whispers shifted, growing louder, chanting her name in an unsettling rhythm. "Just step outside, Sarah. Embrace your fate." The figure extended a hand, beckoning her forward. Each second dragged, as heavy as the suffocating silence. She could feel them all around her, the hidden watchers flitting through the trees, waiting. The urge to flee was overwhelming, but the knowledge that darkness surrounded her only tightened its grip. "Look at us," he urged, his voice a hypnotic caress that wrapped around her tired mind. "We are the guardians of a greater existence. There is power here. Join us and you will see." Desperation brewed in her chest. She could feel the weight of the decision making her head spin. Either she faced the terror in front of her or retreated into oblivion. The headlights flickered, illuminating her options for just a moment longer. In that fragile instant, everything slowed, the world hanging on the precipice of chaos. As she took a step back, a sudden noise erupted from the darkness behind the tree, a low growl, a rustling that froze her in place. "Run, Sarah!" shouted a familiar voice breaking through the whispers. "Run!" Her heart raced, not knowing who had called, but a sense of urgency sparked life into her limbs. The choice had become clearer, even if the path it led to was shrouded in mystery. As she turned to flee, the figure's laughter echoed behind her, chilling her to the bone. "You can run, but you can't hide, Sarah. We'll always find you, and soon, you'll have to return." The trees stood as silent sentinels, witnesses to her flight. Each footfall felt like a sacrilege against the watchful eyes of the woods. There was no safety here, only the promise that darkness was always lurking just out of sight. With her heart pounding and terror surging through her, she darted down the narrow path, not knowing what awaited her at the next turn or if she would ever find her way home. But the darkness wouldn't simply let her go. What awaited her in that deeper darkness? Did the whispers of the woods follow her still? She ran blindly, the night chasing close behind her. Branches clawed at Sarah's arms as she pushed through the thick brush, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The soft underbrush crunched underfoot, a perverse accompaniment to her racing heart. Each step felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare, her thoughts a chaotic barrage of fear and desperation. "Keep moving. Keep moving," she chanted to herself. But the whispers grew louder, tangled in the wind, echoing everything that had just been said. "You've been chosen," they seemed mocking now, wrapping around her like a noose, squeezing the hope out of her. The path narrowed, barely a foot wide, winding deeper into the woods where shadows thickened like syrup, clinging to her legs and pulling her back. She didn't dare look behind. She could feel it watching her, an unseen presence. The almost tangible air of dread hugged her tightly, a warning embracing her in the night. "Where are you?" she gasped, her mind flinging the names of loved ones in desperation. The mere thought of Mark and the kids fueled her resolve. If she could just make it to them. Up ahead, the faint glow of a light flickered through the trees, promising hope yet feeling almost like a trick in the shadowy landscape. A way out, she thought, pushing forward. With every ounce of strength, she stumbled toward the shimmer. The warmth felt miles away, but the ground suddenly gave way beneath her feet, roots snaring her ankles as she tumbled forward into a damp, hidden hollowed space, a small clearing cracked open by centuries of decay. She gasped as her body hit the earth, and the world around her went dark for an agonizing moment. As her senses returned, dread quickly washed over her. The light was gone. The whispers no longer taunted her, now they were hushed, their stillness made her skin crawl. Get up, she told herself, heart pounding, adrenaline surging again. Get up and run. She scrambled to her feet. The surroundings felt wrong, impossibly wrong. The trees loomed higher than she remembered, almost like sentinels caging her in. Overhead, the sky seemed more constricted, tightening around her, stifling the air she desperately inhaled. Suddenly, something shifted behind her. A light flickered back, illuminating dark figures at the edge of the clearing. Her pulse skyrocketed. They stood still, adorned in shadows and secrets. The figure she'd run from now moved among them, his hollow grin instilling a deeper terror than she thought possible. They began to chant softly in a language she didn't recognize, their voices merging into a haunting melody, luring her closer even as her instinct screamed to flee. Join us, Sarah, the figure sang, his voice piercing through the gathering darkness. You cannot hide, you belong with us. Panic surged through her chest. She glanced back the way she came, weighing her options. Behind her, the path was lost, swallowed by twisted roots and dense underbrush. Forward lay an unholy congregation, the promise of safety lost in the dread that gripped her so tightly. Please help me. She screamed, the words tumbling out in desperation. She felt so small, like a child lost on a playground. The figures didn't respond. Instead, they moved closer, circling her like ravenous wolves. The melodious chant amplified, vibrating through the very ground beneath her, adrenaline fired, a primal fear hardening her resolve. No! She shouted with every ounce of strength. She leaped towards the nearest shadow, not to embrace them, but to break free of the soul-sucking grip they had over her. And as she broke from their circle, she stumbled, her foot crashing into a wooden symbol embedded in the ground. It was a totem, dark and warped, radiating an ancient malevolence. Sarah gasped as images flooded her mind, visions of those who had come before, who had succumbed, who had joined this shadowy throng. She had to escape. But escape to what? The Watchers still lurked, their presence heavy with a promise she didn't want to accept. Footsteps echoed softly from the dark corners of the clearing, the Watchers had grown restless. The figures stepped closer, their eyes flickering in the dim light, glinting like silver coins under a bed of secrets. Run, Sarah! Her mind screamed again, but her limbs felt rooted to the very ground that bore those terrible symbols. The air shifted, charged with that same unsettling energy she had felt before. It was close now. Whatever awaited her in the darkness didn't intend to let her leave, and that dark promise loomed just as her decision now lay heavily before her, fight or submit. But could she truly escape when everything around her was tightening like a noose? A low growl sliced through the night, deep, guttural, a threat palpable in the heavy silence. Was it behind her or among the Watchers? An inescapable reality settled over her. There was no way out that didn't lead her to the very thing she feared. In that moment, time paused, breaths hung suspended as fate converged. What had she awakened in the woods? What darkness had she stumbled upon? The answers lay just beyond her reach, and as the shadows converged, the flickering candlelight dimmed to near blackness. And then, unmistakably, she heard the whisper again, lingering in the silence. You can't hide, you're already one of us. The shadows tightened, hungry and relentless, an ocean of darkness threatening to swallow her whole. Sarah's heart raced, pounding like a frantic drum in her chest. She had to move. The growl rumbled again, echoing in the hollow, resonating deep in her bones. Its origin was shrouded in the shifting darkness, every second sealing her fate. Gathering her strength, she forced her feet to move. The Watchers fell silent, their eyes cold and piercing followed her every tremble and twitch. With one last surge of will, she broke toward the narrow edge of the clearing, barely avoiding a gnarled root that reached out like skeletal fingers. Get away. Just run. The mantra pushed her forward, but the dense air made it hard to breathe. Panic clawed at her throat as the growl morphed into a low, rumbling cackle, joining the unsettling chorus of whispers from the figures. Leave her. The command sliced through the air, jarring her. It was laden with authority, resonating above the chilling melody. The figures faltered for a moment, parting like the wind. In their place stood a figure, cloaked in shadow, its eyes holding a luminescent sheen that burned against the darkness. "Stay where you belong," it commanded, and she could feel the pressure of that command. A different kind of fear crept in, prickling at the back of her neck. The moment of hesitation was fleeting, as the figures shifted to envelop her once more, drawn against their will. She took her chance, sprinting towards the edge of the clearing. Branches whipped at her face, stinging her skin as she plunged back into the woods. Each step down the path felt heavier. The roots and underbrush seemed to conspire against her. Shadows clung tightly, whispering her name. "Sarah, you cannot escape." The chant began anew, echoing around her, embedding itself in her mind until desperation morphed into raw, instinctual survival. She deked around a massive oak tree, hoping to lose them, but the ground beneath her suddenly heaved. A scream built in her throat as a nearby tree split violently, splitting open like a door to another world. The stench of rot and decay poured forth, a foul invitation into the mouth of darkness that yawned wide before her. "What is happening?" she gasped, stumbling backwards, but a firm grasp clenched her wrist. It was the shadowy figure again, the one who commanded the others. "Flee, or embrace your fate," it hissed, its voice like gravel sliding down a hill, a cacophony of silent but thunderous warnings. And before she could gather her thoughts, it dragged her towards the opening. "No, let me go," she shouted, panic surging through her veins like a wildfire. Each heartbeat echoed loud in the nearly vacant air. "When the light fades, only darkness remains," it whispered closer, its breath icy against her neck. Fear merged with defiance, igniting a flicker of strength within her. With a frantic twist, she broke free from its grip and barreled towards the looming shadows ahead, throwing herself into the void beyond the naked trees. The growls of the unseen creatures faded to a whisper behind her, swallowed by the encroaching dusk, but as she ran, gut-wrenching doubt seeped in. Where am I going? Each direction seemed the same, and the unseen had not given up its pursuit. The woods closed in tighter, the air thickening, making it harder to breathe. A haunting laugh echoed in the space around her, wrapping around her tightly like a snake. "You've gone too far, Haven Tu," it taunted. Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. "Just keep running," she breathed, though her strength drained as the shadows grew bolder. Ahead, a small glimmer of light pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, beckoning her forward. It danced like an elusive flame, luring her closer as she stumbled towards it, the darkness clawing at her heels. But as she approached, she realized the truth: the light was not a beacon of hope. It was a trap, pulsating with the same malevolent energy that resonated through these woods. What now? Sarah's gut twisted with fear. She had made her choice, but the score had not yet been settled. Time and the woods conspired against her. What would happen if she crossed that threshold? An anguished cry rose behind her, echoing the growing tumult of shadows. It was more than fear now, it was a promise of fate that set her heart racing. Would she reveal herself to the darkness, or forge a path back to the light? She was out of options. Maybe the last choice lay just ahead in the journey of despair. Darkness whispered, "We are waiting for you." The light flickered, a deceptive glow that taunted her. She could feel the shadows closing in, an oppressive weight that pressed against her. Heart pounding like a war drum, Sarah caught a glimpse of something shifting just beyond the light, a grotesque silhouette writhing in the periphery of her vision. Just a little closer, she muttered to herself, a desperate chant for courage. Yet, with each step, the ground beneath her seemed to pulse, resonating with the sinister energy of the light. The whispers grew louder, drowning out her thoughts. Embrace the darkness, they beckoned. She hesitated, paralyzed as dread washed over her. What if the light was a lie? What if crossing that threshold meant surrender? But the growls rose again, deep and guttural, reminding her that the alternative was far worse. "Do or die," she whispered, sweat rolling down her temples. With a final breath, she surged forward. The moment her foot crossed into the light, the world shuddered around her. Instead of warmth, a cold wind howled, freezing her in place. The light twisted into a blinding brightness that morphed into dread. She stumbled, the ground shaking like a living thing, and then silenced at it was an eerie, profound silence, broken only by a distant rustle. No creatures, no shadows, no whispers. Had she escaped? But as she looked around, the landscape had transformed. She stood in a hollow clearing, the air thick with an unnatural fog that curled around her like fingers. The trees were laden with shadows, their branches not just reaching but clawing. Where am I? She breathed, fighting against the swell of panic rising in her chest. Footsteps echoed behind her, slow and deliberate. Freezing, she turned sharply, her heart in her throat. There, emerging from the shadows, was the cloaked figure, its luminous eyes piercing through the mist like a pair of headlights in the night. "You should not have come here," it said, voice low and unsettling, echoing through the hollow. "What do you want?" Sarah's voice trembled, but she stood her ground. "It's not about what I want," it hissed, the shadows around it rippling and shifting. "It's about what you sought to escape." Confusion rushed in. She bit her lip, glancing back at the shimmering light which now flickered ominously, as if it were alive and watching. "I just wanted to be free." A laugh reverberated around her, chilling and deep. "Freedom? This land holds no freedom. It embraces the lost, the forgotten. You cannot outrun your fate." Gripping her head, Sarah staggered back, trying to process its words. Was this the inevitable climax she had feared? Had she been drawn into a web of despair with no way out? The shadows thickened, coiling like smoke around her legs. The figure moved closer, its form almost tangible now, each step amplifying the pulse of dread in the air. "Join us, Sarah. You were meant to play in the dark." "No." She gasped, her breath hitching. "I won't. I'm not like you." "Not yet," it hissed, eyes glimmering with a predatory excitement. "But the night is long, and all who enter here must choose their side." Suddenly, the air shifted, the fog swelling and spiraling around her as though it had a mind of its own. She could feel its malice wrapping around her, coursing through her veins, beckoning her to surrender. Would she have to fight, even flee, from her own choices? With a roar of defiance, as everything threatened to close in, she tore forward into the mist, the shadows yelling behind her. But the ground beneath her feet rippled, dragging her down. An anguished scream, was it hers? Echoed in the emptiness. "Will you embrace the darkness, or fight against the fate that binds you?" Sarah clawed at the air, her resolve wavering, teetering on the brink of despair. Could she break the cycle before it consumed her whole? The pulse of the shadows crackled with anticipation as she plunged deeper into the unknown. The question lingered, was the light still ahead, or had she already lost it forever? Confusion twisted into fear as Sarah plunged into the mist. It swallowed her whole, curling tightly around her limbs, suffocating any thoughts of escape. The low growls behind her faded, replaced by an unsettling, almost soothing silence. But in that silence, something stirred, a hum of energy, a pulsing rhythm that echoed the racing beat of her heart. Each breath felt heavier, as if the air itself pressed in on her. She stumbled forward, blinded by fog in a desperate need to break free. Where was the path? Was there even a path? Panic clawed at her throat, the sensation was as real as the chill that nipped at her skin. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Shadows slithered amongst the trees, twisting and writhing like souls trapped in torment. Her legs trembled as they seemed to lean toward her. "You're not alone, Sarah," they whispered, voices overlapping, drawing her closer with sinister invitation. "No." The word burst from her lips, fierce and frightened. She wouldn't listen. She couldn't let them pull her in. She turned, scanning the thickness of the fog for any sign of the light, but it had faded into the distance. All that remained was the deafening murmur of forgotten spirits. "Join us in the dark," they called out, a crescendo of desperation mixed with malice. The branches shook, urging her to accept their fate. Trembling, Sarah pressed on, the weight of the shadows growing heavier around her. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet became soft and treacherous, like sinking into the depths of despair. With each step, she felt claws of panic gripping her heart, dragging her down. She fought against it, pushing through the fog, each breath a battle, but soon she slipped, her foot caught on something unseen, down she went, crashing into a cold, wet surface. A ripple of cold water splashed around her. As she pushed herself up, shivering in the frigid touch, she realized she had fallen into a shallow pond, shallow yet deep enough to evoke dread. The water shimmered unnaturally, a reflection of her own fear staring back at her. "You cannot hide from what you are," a voice came from beneath the surface, bubbly and cruel. Panic surged as she staggered back, slippery rocks beneath her still mocking her weakness. "Who is there?" she cried, a tremor in her voice. The response was a cacophony of whispers and laughter, echoing around her, spiraling into a nightmarish symphony. They were all around, circling her like hungry wolves. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah shot back to her feet and tore herself from the mire, fighting her way through the dense fog. Desperate thoughts raced through her mind. How could she escape? The path behind her vanished into the murky darkness, and the weight of the shadows pressed down on her shoulders, but then, as if the fog had a mind of its own, it began to dissipate slightly. There! A glimmer of light flickered through the trees. Hope ignited within her, momentarily warming her heart. She could make it. Sprinting forward, she reached for that light, yet as she drew closer, the realization slammed into her like a wall. The light wasn't pure. It pulsated erratically, shimmering in hues she couldn't comprehend. It flickered with life and menace, and the laughter crescendoed around her, growing nearer. "Embrace it, Sarah," it called, its voice melodic yet tainted with an underlying threat. Sarah took a step back, her heart hammering with fear. As she hesitated, shadows coiled at her feet, ready to ensnare her once again. The choice loomed before her like a dark abyss. What if stepping into the light meant succumbing to the very fate she had fought against? In that pivotal moment, silence fell. The whispers held their breath. Sarah's soul screamed as she faced the impossible choice. Would the darkness take her, or could she claim the light as hers without losing herself? The light beckoned, and with it, the haunting question echoed in her mind: which side, light or dark, would she ultimately choose? The light pulsed, a heartbeat in the vast darkness, both inviting and foreboding. Sarah felt the pull of its glow wrapping around her mind, tempting her with promises she couldn't understand. The shadows danced at her feet, their whispers intensifying, a deceptive harmony that throbbed like a warning bell. She closed her eyes, trying to calm the tempest inside her. Breathe, just breathe. But when she opened them again, the light appeared even closer, a blinding beacon now that she couldn't ignore. Could it save her? Or was it another trap? With a deep breath, she forced herself to step closer, each footfall heavy, like wading through thick tar. The air hummed, electric with tension, and the laughter of the shadows morphed into screams, a cacophony of anguish mixed with twisted thrills. The fear tightened around her chest, squeezing so hard it felt like her heart might explode. "Sarah. Sarah, you must choose," dripped a voice from the mist, smooth and serpentine. It coiled around her, wrapping her in warmth that was shockingly wrong. "You already know what you desire." "I don't desire anything from you," she shouted, but where was the bravado? The tremor in her voice betrayed her. The light flickered like the last breath of a dying star, its future uncertain. With a surge of anger, she tore her gaze from the light and turned back to the shadows. "Leave me alone," she cried. But they just laughed, soft and cruel, echoing her own desperate resolve. Each laughter was like a knife, slicing through the veil of her sanity. Suddenly, a shape solidified from the fog. It was a figure, tall and obscured, standing between her and the light. Sarah's heart raced. "Who are you?" It was all she could manage, her bravado fading in the face of this new dread. "Just like you," drew out the figure, voice a chilling whisper that slid across her skin. "Lost in uncertainty, craving clarity. Will you surrender?" In its shadow, she felt vulnerability bloom, a deep-rooted instinct to flee, to hide from whatever malice this figure held. Yet she could not forget the light shimmering behind it. "Get away from me," she shouted, but it didn't react. Instead, it took a step forward, limbs stretching like branches and its eyes glinting in the dark. Shadows spiraled around it, like a misty veil shielding its true form. Thumping pulses echoed within her skull, her instincts screaming that this being was not just an obstacle, but an embodiment of her greatest fears. What did it mean, to surrender? She could see it in her mind, the release from the haze, the freedom from the aching shadows that constantly clawed at her spirit. But at what cost? Enough games, she growled, gripping the damp earth beneath her. Gathering every ounce of her remaining courage, she lunged sideways, running fast and hard into the unknown, away from the terrifying figure. Each step took her further into the darkness, forcing the image of the ominous figure from her mind, but freedom was elusive. The laughter followed her, echoing and growing louder. The pursuit felt relentless, shadows melding into night, a darkness coiling tighter around her. Just ahead, though, the light glimmered again, pulsating in a rhythmic dance, hypnotic in its pull. She didn't know how much longer she could run. Her breath came in sharp gasps, her legs threatened to buckle. Just then, through the terror and chaos, a thought burst forth. What if she didn't have to choose? What if the shadows and the light could coexist? But the figure's chilling laughter abruptly stopped her in her tracks, as if it had heard her thoughts. You think you can control both? Hope wavered, uncertainty slashed through her heart. A choice loomed, heavier than before, as the light flickered violently, threatening to extinguish. Would she stand against the shadows, or would she embrace the light, whatever that meant? As she stood at the brink, the world around her seemed to hold its breath. The question pulsed through her mind, relentless. What lay beyond the light, and would she ever find out? Terror washed over Sarah as she stood immobilized, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a suffocating blanket. The shadows, once merely swirling tendrils of darkness, now coalesced into something more, a pack hunting her thoughts. She could feel their hunger, their glee at her indecision. The light flickered again, desperately pulsing, almost pleading for her to approach. Yet, behind her, she could hear the figure's slow, deliberate movements. It breathed in sync with the haunting whispers around her, echoing off the night air, wrapping her in a cloak of dread. Choose, Sarah. Its voice slithered through her mind, playing her insecurities like a twisted melody. She clutched her head, the tension causing her temples to throb painfully. The shadows leaned closer, their cool breath against her skin making her shiver. All you have to do is surrender. Shut up. I won't give in. The defiance rang hollow, barely a whisper against the mounting chaos. If only she could remember the stories, the warnings that had once seemed so distant but now loomed large in her mind. Then she heard it like glass shattering. A sudden crack resounded deep within her, breaking her thoughts apart. It was in the laughter of the shadows, shaking with sinister delight as they twisted ever closer. She felt their icy fingers tugging at her heart, pulling her toward any semblance of safety she could grasp. Just ahead, the light flared dazzlingly, shooting tendrils of warmth. She hesitated, caught between the comforting glow and the consuming dark. Could she find hope in it, or was it merely another illusion, a deceptive siren calling her to a perilous fate? Focusing on the light, Sarah felt a spark of determination. What if she could illuminate the darkest parts of her? She desperately wanted to believe the light could be a refuge. The shimmering aura beckoned for her to cross over, but how could she risk plunging in without knowing what awaited? She remembered the figure's words, and fear slithered back in. If the shadows were just a part of her, a manifestation of her fears and doubts, couldn't the light also be an extension of her spirit, a flicker of resilience ready to shine? Choose. The figure lunged forward, its form growing clearer, more menacing. The veiled ambiguity of its face twisted into a grotesque grin, eyes gleaming with malice. Around her, the shadows contorted, growing bolder, swarming toward her like a dark tidal wave. Her heart raced, panic swelling. If she fled into the shadows, would she lose herself? If she embraced the light, would she risk destruction? In her indecision, the moment stretched, every second suffocating her with dread. In that moment of desperation, she recalled the stories of those who faced the shadows before her, some who had chosen bravely and emerged transformed. But what if they too had been snared by false promises, just wisps caught in a tempest of terror? The anguish gripped her, a suffocating cap to her thoughts. Was there truly a way through? Do you want to succeed, Sarah? Or will you let the shadows consume you? The figure taunted, unnervingly close now, overwhelmed. She felt her throat tighten as her mouth opened to scream. But before any sound escaped, her eyes darted back to the light, shimmering like a beacon in darkness, its promise dangling tantalizingly. Finally, she exhaled, and with it, made a choice, resolute and fierce. She surged forward, but as she did, the ground beneath her quaked, erupting into chasms of darkness, sucking her in. What would she find within the depths? Was the light truly a path to salvation, or merely the end of everything she had known? As she plunged, swirling shadows conspired wickedly, pulses of laughter echoing throughout like a warning. She was left wondering, had she just doomed herself forever? Sarah's eyes fluttered open to swirling shadows. Darkness gripped her, wrapping around her like an old, malevolent friend. She was disoriented, her mind racing like a wild animal caged in panic. Where am I? Slowly, she realized she wasn't alone. The whispering shadows danced just beyond her awareness, their voices slithering around her thoughts. You are one of us, they cooed, wrapping their icy fingers around her heart. No. She gasped, shaking her head violently as if to rid herself of their influence. The chaotic energy in the air crackled, wrapping around her limbs, an insidious force that wanted to pull her under. But something within her stirred. She was not ready to give in. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from within her chest, a warmth that pushed against the darkness, radiating like a sun-scorched sky. The shadows recoiled, their whispers turning to pained wails. She felt it, her strength surging, rising like remembrance from deep within her. Leave me alone. She shouted, her voice resonating with newfound power, mixing with that luminous light as it mingled in the air like clashing genres of music. The shadows writhed, struggling against the brilliance that now surged forth, illuminating even the darkest corners of her soul. In a flash, memories flooded her, glimmers of laughter with Mark, her kid's tiny hands clasped in hers, their unconditional love a myriad of colors painted against the night. They were her light, they gave her the strength to push back against the encroaching gloom. No! She cried again, rallying against the possessive grip of the dark figures. She felt the energy pulse through her, pushing the shadows back until they shaded the edges of her vision, trembling as if they sensed their power waning. Emboldened, she took a step forward, feeling every bit of despair and fear rise within her, entwining it with that glowing warmth, an audacious act against inevitability. The shadows shrieked, swirling like angry wasps, but she stood her ground. She needed to fight not just for herself, but for her family, each heartbeat echoing a promise. Mark. Kids. She called, the sound sharp and demanding, slicing through the poised gloom. From the vault of darkness, a ripple emerged, and out stepped a light figure, taking form, solid and unwavering. Sarah. Mark's voice thundered through the nightscape. Relief washed over her, and she saw the flickers of wide-eyed innocence that were her children flanking him, comfort glowing in their expressions. The power of their unity ignited something fierce within her, a sensation tenfold compared to what the shadows could offer. Join them, the shadows hissed, their voices thick with desperation, but Sarah stood firm, clenching her fists. You cannot take me. You will not win. An epic clash erupted, with light and shadows battling fiercely, a cosmic dance of power. The ground shook as the essence of her fear collided with her will to survive, tearing through the fabric of this surreal confrontation. With each shout of defiance, the shadows lost their form, dissolving like breaths of smoke in the wind. They gathered and coiled, searching, desperately trying to regain control. But they were no match for the brightness of love woven into Sarah's resolve. No more. She cried, and with one final surge, she summoned every ounce of light within her. Get out. In a breathtaking burst, a shockwave of illumination erupted from her, radiating outward, crashing into the shades that still clung to her. The shadows shrieked in agony as they unraveled like twisted threads, losing their pull, retreating into an abyss, banished for eternity. The light enfolded her, and suddenly, she was no longer in that the hollow. She was back in her car, parked safely in her driveway, the night tranquil, stars glimmering like promises above her. The weight of the experience hung palpable in the air. She gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks, relief and disbelief colliding. I'm back," she whispered, looking around. Opening the door abruptly, she rushed inside. Chaos rippled through her heart when she finally found Mark and the kids, all huddled together in the living room, bathed in the warm, golden light of a lamp. "Mom!" they exclaimed, and she enveloped them in an earnest embrace, creating a protective circle against the world. The air was alive with laughter and love, chasing shadows away like insurmountable waves. "I was so scared," she murmured, tightening her arms around them. "Never again," Mark promised, holding her tightly as he brushed away her tears with his thumb. In that warmth, she found healing. She conquered the darkness, but more importantly, she had found herself again. And so, in the heart of Maple Grove, surrounded by her family, Sarah embraced the light. It glowed brightly in her heart, an everlasting testament to her strength and the bonds of love that could stand against any darkness. "Now, let us see who can make the best hot chocolate." She beamed, her spirit soaring once more, the remnants of shadows fading into a distant memory, but as they shared laughter, a low whisper brushed against her ear, a cold wind returning. "We will be waiting," and for a fleeting moment, uncertainty flickered through her, reminding Sarah that darkness and light coexist in this world. She took a deep breath, knowing she could face whatever would come next together. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are just as intense and gripping as this one. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.